Welcome to Grab Lives, everyone. Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe to the YouTube, Spotify, and Apple platforms. Really helps the process and the message to get out to help people. And just to start with our disclaimer, everything we say and do does not reflect the City of Los Angeles Fire Department. And without further ado, I'd like to talk about the 343 Fund program. This is ran by Angela Scudin. Angela Scudin for her husband, Casey Scudin. And what it is it's a program that's designed to help first responders find a way out and to access kind of some holistic and alternative treatments to heal trauma related to some mental health challenges. And so what they'll do is they'll get someone sponsored and they'll send you to go do Ibogaine and other treatments. But Ibogaine's kind of been one of the main focuses that 343 offers. I've just seen so many great things about this medicine and how it's helping people with brain trauma and mental health disorders, addictions. And so it's an opportunity. So I'm going to have her on next month and we'll talk about it more, but I am really excited to help have her message go out. And if you don't want to go to Ibogaine or if you want to just help this program, you can also just help sponsor someone by paying $3.43. And what that does is that helps sponsor someone who may be in help or may need help. And yeah, so just I would say you can go on 343fund.org. You can look at their website and check out what they have to offer. I am also offering my own program. It's called the Inside and Out program. And what that program entails is it's a tough program. I mean, it's basically if you want to elevate yourself and get out of your own shit and move forward and start building a good foundation with yourself and adapt by transforming your own trauma and eliminating some of the barriers within yourself, within your relationship that stall you out for personal evolution. This program is about 3 months. It's 90 days. And what's going to happen is you're going to approach mental, biological, physical trauma and spiritual trauma that you may need to face. And I'm here to assist you with that. Please message the Instagram page if you're interested in it and I can work with you. I'm only taking 3 people right now because I have so much stuff going on. So if you're interested, please just message the Grab Lives Instagram page and we'll go from there. Today I have Taylor Eyewalker, who is a very wonderful person who came on today, who is a master Kambo practitioner. And she has these other different methods of healing. She does ozone treatment, NAD treatments, and also has a couple other emotional and mental approaches to get to the core root of your problems. She'll talk about what those programs are on the podcast and going into more deeper metaphysical meanings behind a lot of things. So lots of different esoteric knowledge on this podcast episode and also the things she offers. So I think she's a very talented person. If you're looking for something to kind of help yourself and to also increase your biology vitality, she offers those things. So I think she's a very fascinating person, and it was a great episode to kind of see what else is out there. She lives in the LA area in Highland Park if you're interested in reaching out to her, if you're around that area. So listen in and enjoy the episode. Thank you, everyone. I love you.
It's time for Grab Lives.
So I am here with Taylor Eyewalker. Thanks for coming by, Taylor.
Yeah, happy to be here.
So, I love meeting other Kambo practitioners because the journey in Kambo is so profound. and I know you are a master Kambo practitioner. I don't know if you know Sean Forster. Do you know Sean?
I don't believe I do.
He's another good friend who's a master practitioner, trainer with Jenny, Kambo International, good friend of mine as well.
Okay.
But I am very curious about your journey to Kambo because everyone's story is really beautiful and how that medicine comes about. So if you don't mind explaining that.
Well, I came to Kambo because I had originally sought out work with the Amazon jungle in 2005. And it all became possible because I was working with Chinese herbal medicine. And then I was introduced to Amazonian medicine, particularly with the roots and the plants and the flowers and the barks. And I was making tonic drinks with them. And I was told, hey, you should probably go down there. And while we're down there, we'll probably drink some ayahuasca. And at that point, 2005, I was probably like 20. I was in my mid-20s. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll definitely go. And I went down there and it completely changed my life. I stayed down there for 2 months. I worked with the medicine. I worked with ayahuasca, but I also worked with the permaculture garden and was gardening and collecting and harvesting all of these beautiful Amazonian medicines. And then that started my journey with ayahuasca. And I thought maybe at some point after studying for 6 years that I might serve ayahuasca. And I sat with ayahuasca for 6 years. I went back and forth down to the jungle. I thought absolutely that would be part of my journey. And then during a ceremony, I was told, no, this is not what it is that you're going to be doing. But during that time, I had gotten very ill because I lived in a place with toxic mold. And I wasn't really aware of why I was getting sick. But I had this long-term sustained cough that was really bizarre that I couldn't get rid of. And I had already been working in alternative medicine for quite some time and had really tried everything. But I was also introduced at the point of being down in the jungle, maybe you should try some Kambo. And I was like, okay, well, what is it? Oh, well, it will make you very strong. That's what I was told. It'll make you very strong. It will turn you into a warrior. And at that age of my life, I was very much wanting to be even more of a warrior than I already am. And so I tried Kambo and it got rid of my cough. Like the one that had been there for like 2 months. And I was like, wow, there's really something to this medicine. And then all of this kind of rush of information started coming through about how to work with it. And I said, okay, well, I'm supposed to do 9 more treatments in the next 4 months. And that's what I was like told to do. And then it started kind of a flush of clearing a lot of stuff for me that had been kind of like hidden in my tissues. And it started the process of me healing. And in that process, the person that was serving me was like, I really think that you should learn how to serve yourself. And I was like, no, I'm not interested. My journey is, holistic medicine. My journey is kundalini yoga. Like, I don't need to learn how to serve this. You can serve it to me. And no, I really think you should learn. Okay, well, all right, I'll learn. And then the next thing, I really would like for you to assist my ceremonies. And I was like, no, you really don't understand. I'm not interested. My path is kundalini yoga. My path is alternative medicine. Like, I'm not interested in learning how to assist somebody in the ceremony. My journey with Amazonian medicine is done. Ayahuasca told me, I can sit, I can participate in this stuff, but my journey is done. No, I really think that you should do this with me. Okay, well, I'll try. And so I did. And then it became very clear that I was meant to serve this medicine. And so slowly but surely, I just kept getting kind of like encouraged to go in that direction. And I was introduced how to serve. Not in the way that you and I serve currently. It was really jungle style. There were not a lot of things to be quote unquote concerned about. but there are a lot of things to be concerned about.
Right.
The deeper you study and train and get into the nuance of this medicine, you learn how to serve it with precision. At that point, I did not. I was just, following the path of what was being taught to me at the time. So it started to change me from the inside out. It was kind of like a calling that I couldn't say no to. Rather than me going after it and saying, I need to learn how to serve this thing. I need to learn how to help people. Well, I was already helping people. It didn't really seem like I needed another avenue with which to help people. And yet I just continued to answer the call. And once I did, I don't know if you've ever heard the term, the frog puts you to work, but the frog put me to work. I worked every single day, 7 days a week, 12-hour days, serving Kambo. And I was like, this is my deepest connection. I started to understand the medicine like the front and back of my own hand. So, that calling brought me to Kambo, I suppose.
Wonderful. Such a good story. Yeah, it's so true that Kambo just teaches you. You start to learn with it.
Yeah.
Especially the more you do it.
Right.
You just can feel it. There's something that it's doing. And I like to call Kambo it's a phenomena, and we like to just like articulate everything to its minute detail on a scientific level. But with something like this, you can't do that. There are some parts of it that cannot be, that have that scientific method towards it.
Right.
So there's a lot of speculation around it. And then on top of that, you talk about what Kambo is going to do to you. It is a warrior medicine. Absolutely. And the hidden nature in it is really where the healing comes.
Completely.
And that's why I think it's been referred to as an entheogen, because it allows you to go into the deeper subconscious. It goes into the field, accesses these missing parts that really need to come to the surface, which allows us to see the truth essentially. And, I just, over time, the more I've done it myself, the more I just have this utmost respect for it. I had years of doing it, and it still would kick my ass, and then also give me some like absolute truth that would be like, man, I needed to feel that and hear it at the same time. Like, I know like this one time I did it, and I just felt this fear for being a dad. And I didn't know that existed. And I can like start crying right now just thinking about it, because it was so beautiful. But it was a fear that I had, and I had to face it. And I just let it go, with a heart-centered space, because it's not true, number one. And number two, it's just that I needed to release it in order to move forward. And I think that's what Kambo offers, is it closes a chapter for yourself on certain things, which can give you the opportunity for growth,
Right.
and cultivation of a new self. So it can be really unraveling, but in that unraveling state, it's just really beautiful. I don't know how else to describe it.
Yeah. I mean, I said warrior medicine, but, in some way, I don't so much look at it like that anymore. I look at it as, I always call it, to people that want to work with me, a somatic medicine, because it supports us in feeling ourselves on the deepest level possible. Really getting to know the nuanced parts of what's alive in our own body and our own life experience. And so when we can come to awareness with those things, like you mentioned, we can become more whole within who it is that we are. And so when I started working with it, I wanted to access this like very deep, powerful part of myself, but that actually accessed my deepest level of surrender and femininity.
Yeah, I like how the word surrender. It's one of the major like parts of that medicine, because like the holding on to things that don't serve us is what we have to let go of, and it teaches you to just let it go.
Yeah.
You know, it's a more of like that surrender part that gives us the opportunity to, I don't know, just give it up.
Right.
You know, and I don't really know else how to describe it unless you experience it, because for each person it can be different. You know, so my thing is I've been helping other men. That's my path, is helping other men with this medicine. And I'm finding just like men have such a hard time with it.
Oh,
And
beyond.
women are these like, women can come in and just kill it. They just know how to do it. And they know how to access this medicine. I think more so because they're more comfortable with the emotional body. But the men just like want to just be so stubborn with it. And I keep telling, you know, I prepare men before they come in, like, hey, this is not something to defeat. The only person you're at war with is yourself. So just understand that. And the more you fight it, the more you're going to have resistance and have a bit of a like turmoil in the medicine. So my I guess my way I'm teaching is to just show them like the more important ways to access parts of yourself that you've been hiding from.
Sure.
And you've been avoiding. And those are the parts that want you to reveal themselves to yourself, right? So hopefully I explained that well. But we did an episode on Kambo, you know, and I definitely there's a lot to it. You can go talk for hours about Kambo. It's so profound, and like the peptides and Kambo and so forth. But yeah, for women, it's just it's different. And I always think it's so funny how women can come in and just do so well with it. At first, when I was serving Kambo, it was a lot of women. That's just who was coming at my doorstep needing help. And usually people who come do Kambo they've tried everything else, and someone told them about this medicine and they come do it because they're at their wits' end with something like biological, mental, physical, whatever it is, even spiritual. There's something kind of interesting that Kambo does on the spiritual side. Can you kind of like talk about that?
Well, I want to speak to something in particular. Women can handle Kambo because we're biologically designed to give birth.
That was what someone told me not too long ago. I was talking with another group of practitioners and they had mentioned that same thing. So thank you for saying that.
And because we're biologically designed to give birth, we are able to go through massive amounts of transformation to get through to the other side of an experience or bringing something new to life. Well, one, we're able to conceive and then hold, you know, a growing baby, and then bring this growing baby into the world by way of, you know, if an outsider didn't know anything about birth in its most natural design, they would think, wow, this is horrific. There's blood, she's screaming, like this is insane. And we're designed to do that. It's very normal for us. And so when we go into this Kambo space, mothers, like I liken it to my own experience of giving birth. It's like all of the Kambo that I've ever sat with, which is in the hundreds, I think, has prepared me for being a mother. And so when I gave birth to my daughter, it was like, oh, this is familiar. And that's, I think, why I was able to free birth, why I had a wild pregnancy, and it was me giving birth at home. And so when we do something like Kambo, it because I believe that it connects us to the most primordial part of our nature on a very spiritual level, it allows us to connect with all of life, the creation of life, the creation of who it is that we can become and what it is that we're going to birth into the world. It's an opportunity to do that on the deepest level, stripping ourselves clean and working with the element of water and saying like, okay, I'm birthing a new part of myself into this world. And that is like the most fundamentally spiritual thing that we could possibly do on the planet.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think for me, it took me a long time to tap into my emotions, and Kambo's the one that got me there, because I was so stubborn with myself, and it took me like up to like my 6th time doing Kambo to where I actually could cry, and I hadn't cried in years. And it was that surrender state when I actually was crying. But the cry that came out was like this warrior cry, like someone had killed and murdered my tribe. That's the cry that came out. And that was just sitting inside me, just waiting to be released. It's just so essential, but that was so primal,
Sure.
within me. And that's the thing with men. It's like we try so hard to be the foundation, and we forget about the feminine parts of us that are essential to what we do. Like it's creation, nurturing, compassion for oneself. Like these things are important for the balance of it all, essentially, right?
Completely. I was thinking about that actually when you were talking, and for women and for men to understand the inner male or the inner female that exists within both of us, we have to start to reconcile that is a part of us, that we're not looking outside to kind of get that energy. We're learning how to look inside to access the inner opposing energetic, whether we hold the feminine balance or the masculine balance. And so, when we do, we can start to anchor as a whole being, fully self-sovereign, right? So we're not pulling on that energy from the world around us.
Yeah, I think one thing about Kambo is it ignited like my autonomy within myself to like self-govern and take action in a different direction with that anger, which was really great, because you're sitting with your consciousness in it, and you just realize like what you do to yourself. It's almost it's a detox of the mind, body, and spirit all within that 40 minutes, and it's really powerful. So, the biological things is really great too, because it really helps. Just for me, it was my concussion stuff. It just helped me just reset my nervous system. And when I got to that point, that's when the emotional stuff started coming. The wounds I just didn't want to excavate or look at, like just being abandoned by my mother and like the betrayal by my dad. Like I had to face those things, and it was showing me like, hey, you got all this stuff going on, but you forgot these 2 things here you need to face. So it's time. And a lot of grief came through with that,
Well, I would even say that the concussion was probably the invitation.
Oh, for sure.
To start to look at those things. And so whenever we're starting to manifest things in the physical reality, there's already an invitation for us to start to look at the deeper things that are happening internally, and the wounds and the imprints from early biological imprints that have happened from probably in the womb even, all throughout our childhood. And then we bring, manifestations. I had the manifestation of mold. Well, what's the frequency of mold? Frequency of mold might be working in the realm of doubt. So where was I doubting in my own ability to believe in myself, my own ability to hold power, my own ability to speak for myself? And so the mold was an invitation, being exposed to that at that particular time in my life, having the invitation to the Amazon, that was an invitation to actually look at the parts of me that were never fostered in being lifted up, in being able to speak for myself, advocate for myself. And so we can look at the things that happen in the world around us and our own physiology, and we can say, okay, here's an invitation for me to start to go deeper. And we just listen for the little things that can help us along the way. And Kambo is just one of those tools. But, there's like a whole tool bag.
For sure. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Yeah, that those imprints are really powerful. I never, well, at first when I was working through those issues at that time, it came to my just awareness when I had the concussion. I didn't just use that as like the catalyst for change. I had to look at the events that led up to the concussion itself,
Totally.
which was actually what really needed to be honored rather than just the actual concussion. But, this led me to the path of Kambo, which I've been able to help other people with it, especially with brain trauma.
Yeah.
For some reason, it does really well with brain trauma.
Yep.
And there's not many things out there that can really help with brain trauma. I mean, there's some things you can do within the Western medical industry, but this helps so well because it goes to different parts of the brain when Kambo enters the system, and while that helping of the rewiring of the system.
Well, peptides are very particularly helpful. These particular peptides can very much support because they are neuropeptides. And so I would say, peptides across the board, but the peptides in Kambo are extraordinarily helpful.
So I like to segue into NAD.
Yeah.
NAD is a peptide?
Short chain amino acids, or peptides, and NAD is a coenzyme for metabolic function, essentially, for the cells.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, and what got you into NAD?
What got me into NAD? I was very curious. I've always been a very curious person. I want to know what helps the human body function most optimally, because for a long time I thought it was to my journey. That is, I thought my journey was to communicate in other realms. And then I found no, my journey is actually to find out what makes my body most wildly functional in every way possible. How do I turn all the lights on? How do I turn certain, things off that don't need to be expressed? How do I enhance this? How do I kind of explore that? And once I started knowing that my mission was to explore the expansion of my own human body, I wanted to know, how do I do that with other people? And how do I support turning other people's lights on in this way? And so I was looking and searching for all of those little things that might do it and show me the proof in the pudding in the most effective way possible. That it's not a shortcut, but it's very effective if we know how to work with it properly. So NAD was one of those things. And I had heard about it because, the coined term is, an anti-aging tool. And I wanted to know if there was more to it. And I always find mentors that can teach me very profound wisdom. I have this kind of the gift of veneration where I carry lineage with me, many, many forms of lineage. And I just so happen to find teachers in my life that share very deep forms of lineage with me also. But kind of on a DNA level, I carry lineage too. And so when I found NAD, I also found a teacher. And so, there's so many people with, the ability, license carrying ability to carry this stuff around and, put it in an IV drip and talk about its, beautifying effects or anti-aging effects. Yeah, that's just like the tiniest hint of it. And so I said, I want to understand what it's going to do for me. So I got to start doing NAD. So I started getting the right protocols and working and being trained and receiving it from another person. And then I started saying, okay, there's really something to this. So now I'm going to spend the next year of my life doing it in this way, doing several different treatments over the course of a year. And then I'm going to collect my data and see what it's going to do for me. And so I did that. And so I started to collect my own data. I use my body as my own database, and I am exploring what it can do for me. And that's how I found it. And so I then, through mentorship, was trained in working with people that have severe opiate addiction, trained in working with people with severe PTSD, other forms of drug addiction. But opiate, it's very successful with opiate addiction, by the way. I worked with someone that was severely addicted to fentanyl, had overdosed, went to rehab, had an unsuccessful rehab, relapse, came back, contacted me at their wits' end, said, I'm going to die if I don't stop. Okay, well, here's the protocol. Here's what we're going to do. And, you know, I use the word protocol. It's kind of like a standard skeleton that we can kind of work off of, but we're very different. You know, what might be appropriate for me might not be appropriate for you.
For sure.
And so I like to work with it in kind of a nuanced fashion also. But I've found that when you work with starting to clean out the cells with NAD, because we're all born with it, by the way, it all exists within us. It depletes as we go through life because of trauma, because of drug addiction, because of poor food choices, because of environmental toxins and difficulties, because of life. And so giving the system a little more NAD in a very calculated and specific manner for each individual is going to help the human being optimize not only their physical health, but also their emotional health and also the functionality of being able to access their body in the best way. So I know that I just kind of riffed real fast on it, but but how I found it was that I needed to know, you know, what all this talk was about.
The first time I heard of NAD was Deepak Chopra.
Interesting.
Yeah, he talked about it. And I consider Deepak Chopra like just one of the goats out there, you know? And he's a big proponent of it. So I was like, you know, what is NAD? And I was looking into it. And I saw you are a proponent for NAD. I was like, oh, hold on a second here. She's not just a Kambo practitioner. She does other things. And, you know, I'm in the same field where I want to optimize just to maximize my human potential, biologically, spiritually, mentally, everything, you know, and it seems pretty interesting. So, and does that, when you do those treatments and you give someone like this skeleton of like, hey, this is the protocol, do you introduce ozone into that, or is that completely separate?
So I like to talk about people come to work with me, Taylor, and they might get all of what I do or some of what I do based off of what's appropriate for them at any given time. Do I think all the things that I offer will help everybody? Yes. Do I think that everybody's ready for them?
Yeah.
No, I don't. So I'm really listening to the subtle energy of people and seeing what's most appropriate, because I have people from all different walks of life and conditions and health challenges, Lyme disease, you know, autoimmune conditions, cancer, addiction, like many things under the sun, and then very, very healthy people, athletes, things like that. So, you know, certain things are appropriate for certain people at any given time. So I might introduce ozone if it's appropriate.
Yeah, ozone's an interesting one. I've heard of other people doing it. I've heard of like professional athletes doing ozone out of the country and it really helping them. And when I did ozone, it actually was getting rid of some infections in my spinal cord that I had, which I didn't know you could have an infection in your spinal cord.
Totally.
But I did it, I think I was doing it for about like 3 hours. And I felt this just bubble in my back and it popped at some point. And I was just like, whoa, like that was really strange the way it did that. But I heard it helps with like microplastics, pushing all those things out of your system.
Yep.
Many, many other things, you know, parasites, infections in the blood, you know, fungal infections, all those things that we all have, right? Just through being in this urban society.
Right. And we all want a certain level of fungus. We all want a certain level of bacteria. We all want a certain level of parasite even. But it's about getting them in balance and health within our body rather than just like, let's kill it all. Because let's kill it all is the Western industrial complex and, you know, that by way of antibiotics, which wreaks havoc on the human system if not used appropriately. So.
Totally. So you did you've had like mentors on this journey, which is really profound because I've walked in this life as well with so many mentors, and they teach me to now give this gift of something I've been able to learn as wisdom, apply it to my life, and then I can use it for other people and teach them. It's a passing of knowledge. It's really what as human beings, we're designed to just have this passing of the torch to other people in our journey of life, which I found really beautiful as I started embracing my journey and my healing journey. It didn't become a healing journey anymore. It became just this journey of just falling forward into something and meeting beautiful people. And I think that's when the traction of my life really started to move, when I saw the difference of my life in that manner. And I really see that with you, and I really feel you embody just the poise and honor within yourself with that journey as well, which I just find really profound and beautiful on this path of life, because we walk through this life with so much angst and stress, and it doesn't have to be that way as soon as you change your perspective. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot with this, and the way I've kind of seen it too, is I've taken it all the way back to my thoughts. What is my thought life like and on this journey? Mm-hmm. And that is what really is important to me, is how I think about things, what's underneath the surface. And I'm segueing in here with the PSYCH-K thing, mm-hmm. because I think that's really important. I think that really is the core of how we inhabit health. I've had a really good friend tell me, like, hey, you can do all the cold plunging, like you can do all these diets and all these workouts, but where are your thoughts mm-hmm. surrounding it? Mm-hmm. Because if you cannot like free this mental prison you're in, then you cannot embody true health. Mm-hmm. So start there and sit with it, whatever it is. If you're disturbed by something, go sit with it. If you are challenged with a belief system, go sit with it and see what comes up. Be that with yourself. Be your own guru, because no one else is going to read your mind the way you can. Mm-hmm. And you're going to be really fascinated on this journey, because you'll see you have all the answers. Mm-hmm. And what I've told other people too is, like, you can have these guides, these teachers, these people who can help you, but in the end, you have to do your own healing, and you're the one who has to embrace it all. The dirty things you don't want to see, the thoughts that you don't want to hear, it's all a part of the system. So if you don't look at the entirety of the whole, you're not going to find and embrace that full healing on this journey here. So the PSYCH-K thing mm-hmm. is really fascinating to me. And I'd like for you to kind of explain what that is.
Well, the future of medicine is frequency. End of story. Like, we have all these amazing tools, but at the end of the day, the future of the medicine is frequency. So I heard an interesting thing yesterday, and then I'll go into PSYCH-K. So you have a child. I have a child. Many people listening probably have a child, right? Well, maybe that child goes for the thing that you don't want them to go for, but you're trying to be relaxed because you don't want to be like, no, don't go for the thing, and then, frantic energy kind of takes place. And instead you're like, well, maybe I'll just let them momentarily explore the thing. But internally, the way that I feel about them exploring this thing is that I don't want them to do it. So your frequency, our frequency, if we feel that way, the child starts to feel, right? Because pre-verbal, particularly, they feel in energetics. So they can feel the energetics of what it is the parent is actually transmitting. And so all that child feels is, well, they're letting me do this, but they feel like they don't want me to do this. So they're sending me mixed messages. We do this all day long with every human being that exists around us. We might be in a room with somebody and say yes to doing something with somebody, right? But then something in our frequency is off because we haven't fully said yes on all levels of existence. Like, yes, this works, right? And so if we're doing that, with our job, with a relationship, with the food that we eat, with the exercises that we're doing, with the medicines we take, with whatever practice we do. If we're doing it and all cylinders are not firing with a positive frequency on the deepest subconscious level, the relationship that we have to the thing will feel it. And it might not be so overtly obvious, like, you know, oh, the relationship is just not working out with the person that I'm with. And you know, it might not manifest that way, but it might manifest in just something not gelling, right? Something not getting into a groove. And it's all because we haven't actually worked with, you know, where we place our body in time and space and the full yes commitment on a subconscious level, all the way to the conscious level of participation. So when I talk about PSYCH-K, PSYCH-K is a modality that supports us in one, understanding what it is that we want to have as a belief system and fully feel it and fire on all cylinders, even our subconscious. It's a modality that helps us, one, find out about what that might be, and two, shift the belief patterns and systems that are underneath the surface that are stopping us from being able to experience that which we want to experience in our life, which might be a happy, healthy relationship, which might be a happy, healthy relationship with food, a person, our job, you name it. And so we kind of have to understand what are these belief systems that are underneath it all that are actually stopping me from having a fulfilling life. The life that I say that I want, but I just seem to keep hitting my head against the wall. Well, there's definitely some kind of unconscious gain that we get from not reaching where we want to reach. So PSYCH-K is a very powerful tool, and it looks very simple, but it's a very powerful tool to start to shift those patterns and belief systems. Yeah, I'm going to pause there.
Is it done through hypnosis, or are you just kind of doing conscious work?
I mean, let's see. Hypnosis, we're constantly self-hypnotizing.
For sure. Oh, for sure. Totally believe that.
And so I would say the technique is through creating affirmative belief statements by doing what we call balances. So in the modality, we do several different balances. And those might look like meditative postures, silent mental repetitions of phrases, and locking those things in with very tried and true ancient techniques to fire the neurological system. But everything that we do with our body in PSYCH-K is an ancient neurological system technique to create some sort of alignment with the left and right hemisphere of the brain. So that's essentially what we're doing with the modality. And what I love about PSYCH-K is that, like, I'm not doing anything on somebody else. When somebody comes into my space and wants to do PSYCH-K with me, we're doing PSYCH-K together. And I'm their partner to guide them through the PSYCH-K practice. And we're in a relationship together in this space. And so there is no hierarchy, which I love about this practice, because you get to do PSYCH-K with yourself. And I take you through PSYCH-K.
I like how you say that it's a relationship, because
Right.
essentially all things are relationship.
Yes.
You know, and connection. Like, these are spiritual practices that we've dumbed down to just eradicate ourselves from being a spiritual being,
Right.
embodying this meat suit we have to walk around in, right?
Yeah.
And even going back to what I was mentioning about, like, the scientific method, like, having to study everything in its form of matter has eradicated us to blinding ourselves from believing anything that is metaphysical in itself.
Right.
The only thing that's helped us has been quantum physics, because they've been able to quantify something to show that there's evidence of something for people to believe. But what gets us in these blinded, limiting beliefs states is like the programming that we've put ourselves through childhood. We've all gone through it. Like just sitting in front of TV and watching Barney as a kid has been programming my subconscious mind into whatever it is, right? Like the color blue is blue,
Right.
you know, but it's super fascinating how we are so susceptible to these subliminal programmings. And even as you get older, if you're not conscious of it, you can allow yourself to program anything.
Right.
You know, so that's why I think it's super important to be aware of your surroundings and what you program yourself. And I'm very cautious and careful with that. And the things I feed myself mentally, it's essential to how I'm going to perform in my life. So I've done a lot of work on my programmings, and the biggest ones I've had a really hard time with is the way I was raised was very sacrilegious around reward and punishment, like guilt, sin. And so I created a pattern within myself and a belief system around risk and reward because I was raised and taught that. And if you do something bad, you get spanked. If you do something bad, you're a sinner. And if you don't repent, you're going to hell. Like those are the things, the belief systems I subconsciously was raised with since birth.
Right.
You know, so I have this pattern of self-masochism and self-punishment that I'm really careful about now, but the most of my life I've done that for myself. I would even do it with exercise and food until I would get injured. And then my body's like, stop it. Like, what are you doing to yourself? You know, you're punishing yourself. Like, why do you want to punish yourself? And so it's a really slippery slope with these belief systems. And it took me a long time to actually get to the core of what was sustaining my behavior, you know? And I think this is a big one for a lot of people, because not saying that religion is bad, you know, nothing is neither good nor bad, but in essence, these are the ways I behaved because I put meaning to them, and it started to like build off of those. So it became my foundation. And so when I had this foundation that was faulty and it's not in alignment with and harmonizing with the way things can be, then that's when I would run into problems in my life with relationships, with friendships, with work life, you know? So it's really fascinating going to these belief systems. And I feel like now that I'm very aware of it, I still feel like there's something like missing around it, you know? So I'm still on the journey with that. I don't know if you can kind of relate by any chance with how you kind of would work with people with this method by any chance.
Like they're on the journey, but there's still something there that they just can't seem to access. Yes. Okay. This is I'll speak to it. Healing is a spiral. We go in, we come out. We go in, we go out. We shed many different parts of our consciousness throughout our journey to become more aware. Sometimes the things that we have not fully touched upon yet have not arrived in this timeline because we're not yet meant to witness it. It's okay to know that it's there, and yet there's no rushing to find that thing that we haven't put our finger on yet, because we have to trust that because healing is a spiral and we go in and we go out, we will find our way there at the perfect timeline for our healing and evolution. And that's what I remind people, particularly ones on the journey. They're just ready for more. Always this beautiful quest to become better people, and yet an insatiable urge to sometimes fix the parts of themselves that still feel a little bit out of balance. I like to remind people that it hasn't arrived yet because the timeline's not appropriate. And so we can do things to invite clarity and a new timeline. But sometimes it's really just about resting in this space of knowing that all will be revealed at the right time and space. There's no forcing or pushing, merely just an invitation to get curious without needing to change anything at all, because we are perfect whole beings right now. And if we can start to look at ourselves like that in the present moment and be aware of our humanness and our fallibility and all of the amazing things that make us, living beings on planet Earth, we can get very humble and present with ourselves and stay constantly attuned to the unfolding of change.
That was a very non-linear answer.
I know.
Thank you for that. That was a perfect way to answer that. And I think it's more, I was just curious on your thoughts on it, because it's such an interesting path that I found within myself, and I think with the spiral, well, the way I've seen it is, when you're opening up a bottle of wine, that's a spiral, and that's, it's the more you twist it, the more it's going to go deeper. If you pull it out too quickly, you're not going to be able to get to your wine.
Yeah, the cork will break.
It'll break. So you have to be really patient and use the right amount of force and have a technique to it. So as you learn to get better at it, you can work at getting to having that corkscrew all the way down. And then you can pull it out.
Right.
So, but even pulling it out, you have to have the right amount of technique. So in champagnes, I mean, that's a whole other ball game. So
Right.
I love that analogy. I've used it for a lot of people because it is so true. We have to honor the fact that this is not a linear cycle, but things do come in cycles, and that's the way it works. So when the time does come, that means it's time to harvest, or it's time to just go deep within, or it's time to reap the fruits and when the flowers, when that time comes, and it's time to reap the joy, just like how the cycles of life come.
Completely.
And I think we've lost touch with this capacity of understanding how nature is operating, because we're living on this plane of existence within this planet, and this planet is the best teacher.
Right.
And every indigenous culture has learned from the planet's teachings. And we've just eradicated the wisdom cultures from the wisdom keepers who kept this knowledge for us. And from the Western world, we've lost the discipline, we've lost the reverence, we've lost the autonomy and the respect that this planet needs in order for us to get this information. We've tried to just go into everything with this linear method,
Right.
and it doesn't operate that way. So a lot of times it's just a unraveling and the rewiring of how we think about things in order for us to reconcile who we truly are as human beings and how we're walking on this plane of existence, which has been, it's just really hard to do when you're living with these belief systems, right? And so the programmings and stuff, it can be really difficult, and it can be really it can be really hurtful sometimes for people to just realize, like, hey, everything I learned was a lie.
Right. Yeah.
It can be just traumatizing for some, So, I'm in the field of living in a linear way of doing stuff. You got to get from point A to point B, and you got to do these two things along the way, and this is how you get there. And that's kind of like the part of being a good soldier and being a good firefighter. And you have to think this way, and the analytical thinking gets in the way of how we gonna come into our life and come home and be with your family, because that is the really hard balance that you have to turn that part off. That part's needed for work, but when you come home, you can't talk to a 10-year-old that way.
Right.
You got to talk to her with softness and be open to her emotions. And that's why I always call Paisley, she's my guru, and she's my Zen master, because she teaches me things I'm missing.
Right.
And same with my cats. They're my Zen masters in my house. They can just chill and then get up and jump in like 15 feet in the air from nothing.
Right.
So how can I be like that? Be super relaxed and get to that state. And I think the way I've kind of sequestered through like qigong and I'm doing my qigong practice is your state is everything. Your state is 90% of the practice, because if you go into doing the movements don't even do anything for you if you're just having anxiety or you're having these thoughts.
Right.
So you have to put yourself into these different practices to put yourself into a relaxed state, into a calm state, into a state of integration into the body, and a unification state, which I find really profound. So I know there's these belief systems, right? And what are your thoughts on like how belief systems have sequestered into someone's life and how we can maneuver them?
So can you be more specific so I could answer?
Well, what's your method, I guess, for helping someone with a limiting belief system, I would say?
Yeah. Well, gosh, so many methods. But if I'm using PSYCH-K, for instance,
Yeah.
what do you want to change? What do you want to work on? That's kind of like, what are you here for?
Yeah.
I'm listening to many things. And a lot of times people come in and say, what are you here for? And they tell me something, but then their field is telling me something totally different because they've just gone off on a tangent about this whole other thing. Usually I'm listening to what's underneath the surface, and then I like to ask questions. I get curious about a feeling. I get curious about an experience, or sometimes I do just ask, well, what do you want to shift? What do you want to experience? What could it look like instead of this? And then we start to go down the exploratory rabbit hole and usually find a limitation. And then we like to look for secondary gains too. What might you be gaining by continuing this pattern? Because a lot of times the gain is bigger than the desire to change. And the gain might be feeding something very, very old, right? And so the secondary gains are very interesting to look at because that might be the entire concrete wall that is stopping the change. Let's say, even though we balanced this other thing, the secondary gain is actually like it's the one that's creating all of the challenges because of a learned storyline or belief system. So I am a little bit like a cave explorer. I just like to kind of dig in there. I like to investigate. I have open and curious ways of going about how I work with people. I do not go in with an agenda or thinking that I know anything about the person in front of me. I want to see what they're going to reveal to me, because whatever they reveal to me shows me where they're at any given point in time. And then if I can dig a little bit deeper, then I can kind of bring something to the surface. And sometimes people aren't ready to see certain things. This is why the timeline is really important. And so that's something to kind of be sensitive to with whatever modality anybody's working with. So hopefully that's clear in the way that I go about
Oh yeah,
it.
for sure. That was really helpful. And I love how you do that. You just like the revealing, have someone else reveal it for you. I think is really important. So you mentioned like the field. Can you explain what that is? I don't think some people, because we're talking like we understand some of these things.
Sure.
I don't think not everyone understands like what the field is. And the way it was taught to me is like the totality of everything is including the like every single little thing, the energetics that's surrounding you as well. So I'd love for you to kind of explain your version of what that is and how you're even seeing what that is.
Beyond my own version, I'd like to give people listening an invitation to close their eyes even and just sit in silence and see what they notice with their eyes closed. Do they notice the sounds in the background? Do they feel the air brushing across their face? How does their clothes feel on their body? What's the sensation going through them? That's what I want people to start to notice within themselves. Then they will start, once they experience the more visceral part of their own nature, they'll start to notice beyond that what is actually happening in a space. The field is an energetic imprint. It's something that if we slow ourselves down enough, all of us can feel. All of us have the capacity to tune into the field of awareness. And so, what is the field? It's all things.
Good answer again. No, I totally agree with you. I think each individual has like their chi field, right? That's the way I've been taught. You get the chi field, and chi field has information there.
Yeah.
And so information will come to you when it's available to you as you're cycling through life. And so there's so many different versions of this, like people have done the best they can to quantify it with scientific method, to where like people have taken pictures of electromagnetic frequencies, and now they can see there's a field around you up to like 6 feet. But these machines are maxed out at 6 feet. So depending on the person, if someone's stressed out, they're bogged down by stress, anxiety, depression, that field shrinks.
Yes.
And so the more we inhabit this positive charge, that frequency expands. It can go beyond that 6 feet. And so I know I've talked to some Qigong masters, and there was 2 Qigong masters, and one was in San Francisco, one was here in LA, and they would speak to each other telepathically because their field would expand beyond the city.
Right.
And so these are just some things coming across. Some of these masters I've come across where they were able to start fire with their hands on the ground. And so you can do these superhuman powers when the field expands.
Right.
And so the field can go far and out, however you want it to be. Like for years I've studied like the Tao and like understanding like just how things are operating. And the moment you try to put words to the Tao, you don't even know what it is. That's like the paradox to it.
Yeah.
So I do think feeling is pretty important when you're tapping into something, but I think it's really hard and difficult for some, especially when I'm talking to a firefighter, right? Like explaining, they'll be like, "Oh, what are you talking about? Like your aura." They've heard someone talk about it in like a yoga class, you know?
Yeah.
And it's really hard for them to just wrap their head around it because of logical, analytical thinking and something that's going beyond their belief systems that's not serving them, right? And when we do challenge those things, but my goal is to always challenge people's belief systems as much as I can,
Right.
because I think we're at this point in time where we have to inhabit the existence of who we are in its purest form and in its most superhuman form. And I think we're just at that marker in time right now on this planet where we have to do that, and I hope people can just pass that to each other and see like how powerful we really are. All these other things around us that's happening right now, like that's just a distraction.
Right.
But if you get caught up in it, then now you're going to get lost. Now you're going to have all these reactions and these conditions surrounding like your belief systems.
Well, speaking about firefighters or anybody else that hasn't had the opportunity to just slow their life down enough to feel what we might be talking about in regards to the field, this is why I just say, like, close your eyes, close them for longer than you want to, and then just notice what's there, because that is the first step in being able to become more sensitive to what is actually happening in the whole imprint of your surroundings. And of course, there are technologies and ways to build the field. I've been practicing Kundalini yoga for over 20 years. And, same with Qigong or any form of martial arts. You are building an energetic field, but anybody can start the process of understanding what the field is like by just closing their eyes and by starting to notice. Because if you just start to notice, because we've been given all of these amazing sensorial capabilities, right? Sight, hearing, smell, taste, touch. But if we start to slowly turn those things off, we start to turn the other ones on, and then we're able to see what else is really out there. And that is the totality of the field of consciousness. And so I really encourage everybody to know that it's possible for them to feel into all of this, because we are all the same in this way with all of our capabilities and capacities. It's just our belief systems
Right.
that limit us from being able to really feel that.
Yeah. I mean, so hold on a second. Yeah, I think for me, I knew I was sensitive for a very long time. And when I was younger, like when in my 20s, I started to experience my sensories being more magnetic. I don't know how else to describe that. Where I could read people very well, but on an energetic scale. And so over time, I was afraid of it. And so I would actually dumb those senses down with alcohol. So my alcoholism was a relationship of just giving myself just enough alcohol to where I wasn't a drunk asshole, but just enough to where I can dumb those senses down, because I was extremely sensitive and hypersensitive to the point where like anything affected me. So over time, I've suppressed those things. And then when I went through my spiritual awakening, that all these things turned on at full ignition. So I had a really hard time with managing those skills. Luckily, I had friends and mentors who knew about this stuff because I had no clue, and like, so I was able to actually harness my skills and use them. And so what I've noticed too is when I go to work, it is not the best time for those skills. So it's been a very disciplined practice with great focus to turn those things off when I'm at work, because they are not the best when I'm at work, because I have to manage so much. And when those other things are kind of like around in my sensory field, it just adds too much, and it can actually create more stress for me. So I have to be really careful with that, which has been a fine line for me. But if you don't have someone to tell you or teach you those things, I mean, I would be a wreck,
Right.
because I work in the underworld, essentially. I'm dealing with meth addicts. I'm dealing with people dying like all the time. I'm transitioning death all the time. And so I have to really be on my game, and almost protecting myself in a sense, so I don't even like receive someone else's energy as well. It's a very interesting dynamic.
Yeah.
So I think with these things, like there's opportunity to turn some of these things on. Like one of the things is I'm extremely sensitive to energies, like energetics. And so I've been in people's houses where someone's committed suicide, and I've just felt this dark energy over me. And I'm like, dude, like I can't shake it off. I couldn't shake it off for weeks. And I realized I had to protect myself before I would enter like someone's house like that. But the part about it is that I'm working for 3 days straight. That third day, I'm extremely exhausted with lack of sleep. There's so many things a part of this equation that like has been really challenging. So I think for us in this line of work, we become so numb to all of it that we just don't even feel anymore. So I think that was the hard part, was I definitely numbed myself with alcohol. And on top of that, my line of work had numbed me down to like the bone where I couldn't feel anything. So when Kambo came into my life, that's what broke down those concrete walls where I can actually feel something. Because I didn't feel anything at all. I was just a cold hard bitch about everything, and had no empathy for anyone. And that's not a life I definitely didn't want to live. So I definitely went on a long tangent about that, but super interesting when we're working with these types of people, though, because we're still human beings,
Right.
and that's what I try to get to is like, I want everyone to just be their human self, despite if you're a police officer or you're a veteran or whatever. You be human, honor the fact that you're just angry. It's okay.
Right.
Be angry,
Right. I think too because we're talking about practices that help us become more aware essentially, and being in an environment that could be high pressure like what you're talking about, and an environment like maybe somebody does want to even step into the path of what you and I do, combo or something, some other modality. Or maybe they're just awakening their senses and they don't want to bring that into their work life because there's highly sensitive people. I think with every part of awakening our spirit, we have to also teach ourselves what it looks like to hold a protective field. It's a responsibility, if you will, to have this practice, of awakening, is to also know when do we need to build ourselves a protective bubble so that empathy and compassion can remain present, but we don't actually take on the negative feelings, emotions, or things that we might have experienced by coming into a particular space. And that's the beauty of kind of what it means to step into being a more mature practitioner of something, is that we learn how to not take on other people's stuff, and we learn how to stay fully clear within ourselves while staying open-hearted, empathic, and compassionate. So I think that's an important thing to talk about as we're talking about all of these beautiful things. We also have to learn how to do that for ourselves, because if we just take everything on, we just become these kind of loading zones, and we're not cleaning ourselves out properly. And this is where spiritual burnout can happen, especially when we're in service to others.
I love that. Yeah, the spiritual burnout, because I've gone through that before, and it doesn't feel good without a doubt. What was interesting with these protests is like I was actually feeling that going on. I was actually I was more irritable, and I was like, why am I so irritable? Like nothing's going on. And I'm like, oh, I'm actually like in the middle of the eye of the storm.
Totally.
So I'm experiencing that. And so it actually made me kind of go into myself. And the way I was taught was the more if you do certain practices, especially like yoga or qigong, that's why I do qigong, is because I know what's mine. So I make this relationship with what is mine. And so when something's not mine, I know it within an instant. Like I remember standing like across the table from a guy who was just so anxious, and I could feel it. It was like, dude, like what is going on? I'm not anxious, but there's something anxious around me. I was like, what is it? And I looked at this guy across the table. He wasn't showing he was anxious, but I knew he was the one, if that makes sense, which is really fascinating, but becomes through my practice that brought the awareness for me to know like what is my signature imprint for my own stuff. Right. And so I think that's pretty much like the best way I can describe it, is knowing your own blueprint essentially. And when you know your blueprint, like you can have that better awareness, I think, over time. I don't know if you had experience. I mean, you were in LA, right? So like you're experiencing like, I don't know if you had experienced any of that collective
angst. My experience currently is very unique. because my main responsibility is caring for a 7-month-old baby. That is the baby I birthed. and so when all of our love and care and attention is going towards something that means everything to us, we have the ability to kind of filter out all the other stuff in the world. Or at least that's been my experience. She's my anchor. She's my calm place. She's my presence. And so I feel like I take less on that is not mine because I have something far greater to care for, which is the future of humanity.
Yeah.
So
Another good answer. No, it makes sense. Like when we or have this overwhelming sense of love within us, love overcomes all things.
yeah.
Like I know there was this lecture from Thich Nhat Hanh I listened to, and this little girl had asked him about anger, and the way he answered her, these monks always answer in riddles, right?
Yeah.
But the way he answered her was saying that our hearts are like a river, and so when we throw salt into a glass of water and you drink it, you're going to taste the salt. But if you throw salt into a river that's flowing, you will not taste the salt. So if our hearts are filled with this overwhelming sense of love, the small things that will enter won't even matter.
Right.
And that's the way he answered this. I think she's probably like 12 years old, this little girl. And she was like shocked, And he went into this other description on how anger is like mud, and the lotus flower is birthed from mud.
Right.
And so sometimes we see things and we put meaning to them when we don't see the full picture. And so from anger, we can realize that actually it can be creating something and be having the foresight into something else that's being emerged from within. When we get caught up in our own self-righteousness, sometimes we forget that there is nothing linear here happening. There's actually something bigger that's happening, but we just want to see it now. We want to do it now. We want to experience everything right now when we don't have the patience or the kindness for our own selves, the compassion for ourselves to witness something that's actually emerging. Thich Nhat Hanh, he's pretty amazing, So
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So I don't know. I think we covered. I don't know if I covered everything that you offer. Is there anything else that I'm missing here?
Yes, but we also don't have to cover it all too.
Well, I am curious. The uncoiling thing was pretty interesting to me. I don't know if you want to talk about that.
Sure. Many years ago, how about I speak about it like this? So everything that I've ever done has been like a drop into my consciousness from the universe. It's not been like, okay, I'm gonna create a plan to do this thing and I'm gonna create all these things. No, my experience of life has been fully downloaded, for better or for worse. Not everything I have done has been successful or I have followed through with, but everything that I have brought to the surface of life that I continue to do has been through a channeling, if you will. And so I was given a gift of a program of working with individuals one-on-one, but also I have done groups too. And this has been a long-term training program that I have essentially worked with to support individuals in understanding how to master the ordinary parts of themselves and the extraordinary parts of themselves, and what it means to bring all of us together from the biggest to the smallest, and how we take out the garbage. This is the same way we show up to our own spiritual practice. And if we know how to attune all of these things to bring them to a higher level of consciousness or awareness, or just show up better, show up bigger, show up fuller, that is going to change our entire lives. And so my training was around the crux of it, understanding and mastering one's own emotional state, understanding the deepest aspect of our somatic bodies, but also the way that we communicate and the way that we use language to wield our world, and also the way that we show up in relationship to others, what we hold as a vision for our fundamental truth and the way that we want to walk through life, and so on and so forth. So this training, if you will, is for individuals and groups of people that want to do that in their lives. And I've taken a lot of people through it over the last 15 years. So that has been the Uncoil Method.
Interesting. So like emotional intelligence, is that like, I mean, I feel like that's like the basic foundation of like understanding ourselves, you know, but emotional, I feel like emotional charge is what really will create in our lives, you know. And for me, like I'll work with my emotions because I'm less prone to even go there, you know, so I'll go there myself and face it to see what I'm feeling. That's like my start, especially when I get off work. I ask myself, hey dude, how are you feeling right now? Like what emotion is up? What emotions am I experiencing? And that's really like the key point of how I feel, like what's my state. And I do it with brutal honesty. Like if I'm angry, I'm just angry. Like who cares? You know, it's not that big of a deal. It's not the end of the world. But I used to shove it under the rug and just stuff it. And that's what made me sick over a long period of time, is when I would stuff my emotions, especially the ones that hurt the most, like grief. You know, like I think like a really good friend of mine had said to me, like, John, PTSD is just a lot of unprocessed grief. And so getting these guys in a room and getting them to cry is so hard to do if you don't know what you're doing.
True.
So I think opening up to just the hurt is the biggest hurdle, because we want to avoid it. You know, we don't want to face our hurtful feelings, you know, and the things that happened in the past, but that's what takes to become whole once again. Because if you're just scattered out emotionally, then you're not gonna witness the truest part of yourself. And I think I've made a vendetta with myself to just be brutally honest, like no matter what. That's been like my key. Like because we can subtly lie to ourselves all the time,
Right.
you know. So the moment we realize we're lying to ourselves a lot, then we just can be more honest with ourselves, even more than that, and then that can bring more of that key point to that emotional intelligence, you know.
Yeah. And I look at emotions like energy in motion. And if we allow these feelings to get stuck, then it looks like a really stinky garbage can, right? And so we have to learn how to take that trash out. And that way we can just, you know, we have things cycling through, but they're in motion. The feelings are welcome, but it's when they get stuck and stagnant for a long time that is what creates problems for us in the world, in our relationships, in our jobs, in our relationship with ourselves, in the words that we speak. It all comes out through that. And so I think that if we learn how to look at these things as the crux of our existence, like if I don't move this stuff, it's going to affect everything around me. It doesn't matter how good intentioned I might be. If, you know, I have a feeling about something and I'm not moving it through me, and then I'm relating to people, yeah, forget about it. It's gonna get stinky eventually. So our job is to learn how to really take that trash out properly.
I love that. Man, I just recently came across some bigger hurdles within my own self, because the more I've done work, conscious work, and just awareness, the deeper I go into myself, and so the deeper I go is when I'm faced with the bigger shadows or the bigger demons. And the emotion I had to face, I'm still facing, is like some hate in my heart, like towards myself. And, like that is a really hard one to swallow. And I think that self-hate really is like the only cardinal sin, and so working around it, I tried to forgive myself and I couldn't. So that was the one that hurt me the most, is I couldn't forgive myself, because I feel like there's something protecting that hate. And so, it comes from trauma in my life. And so that trauma is just made me feel that self-hate. And it's not me that's feeling it. I feel like that when I would sit with it, it's that part of me that felt forgotten and lost and abandoned and betrayed by myself, like me betraying my 19-year-old self. And when I would sit with that, that's when the beauty came, of just realizing that's what's been missing. That part of me just is needed to be held, because it's been forgotten. And the true emotion of what that part of me is feeling, that I just, for layers and layers and layers of what I've been trying to get to, finally came up, but can't be forgiven yet, because it needs to be held and needs to be feeling safe in order for that forgiveness to come through, which is now just that building that relationship.
Right. Are you holding that space in yourself now? That part of you that felt abandoned and forgotten?
I think it's like a work in progress. Like even today, I was just walking around doing stuff, and I just had this intuition that you need to sit down and not do anything, because I was actually disassociating,
right,
and avoiding from having to get the information around it. So when I did sit with it, this image of myself was just weeping and full of anger, like extreme anger, and screaming. I was like, oh man, this is what this feels like.
Yeah.
But it's funny, when you just sit down for 10 minutes, you can get information.
Right.
Do
you ask yourself what you're gaining by feeling this way?
Like feeling hate?
Sure. Yeah. Feeling hate, or feeling abandoned, or feeling forgotten. What do you gain?
Well, I really don't gain anything.
On a deeper level, subconscious level, you do.
I think I'm gaining the sovereignty of reparenting myself, in a way, of taking the responsibility to retrieve what was lost, and give myself the full ownership of it all, instead of because essentially I betrayed myself, which hurts, and I think that's probably what hurt the most.
Yeah, I think sometimes when we take all that other stuff away, you're gaining the opportunity, or you're gaining the ability to kind of give it back to yourself. There's something sometimes really deep underneath the surface that is beyond the part of us that felt forgotten, beyond the part of us that felt abandoned. There's this other little part of us that wants to speak, that's actually the one gaining something. That's why it's the repetitive pattern. It's not oh, I'm getting the opportunity to change, or that's all the positive stuff. But there's something that still sneaks in whenever we have the repetition of an experience that's not preferred. And I always like to say, okay, so what is this part of me gaining by repeating this pattern? What am I still trying to show myself? And maybe that thing is so hypnotic. The hook is so deep that, you know, even the part of me that feels abandoned and left, we can't even touch the other part.
Right.
And so in this conversation, I think it's important to say, okay, like maybe I haven't found out what the deeper part of me is actually gaining by the repeating pattern, but I can actually now, when I sit and when I notice I'm disassociating or walking around, I can now sit and say, okay, well, this part of me wants to be hugged, loved, appreciated. But underneath that, like, okay, what else is there? And we don't have to find the answer today, but it's kind of...
Yeah, I definitely, that's good. Yeah, I was talking to my friend about it, and he was saying the same thing, like, in general sense, the same thing. He was like, how long do you want to feel this way? And how long is it going to take for you to suffer?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, we suffer till we can't suffer anymore.
Right.
And we will suffer. Like, many of us have a gigantic capacity for suffering.
Yeah.
Years, decades even. Many of them.
Yeah.
And yet we have to decide that we no longer want to suffer with the thing.
Yeah, I think even some religious and spiritual, like, I guess, practices or beliefs will use suffering as a means to reach the divine, or their version of the divine, when it doesn't have to be that way. Like, we don't have to suffer in order to feel the divine.
Right.
That's a false way of going about it. The universe is just going to respond to you however you want to retrieve that or relay that information. It's neutral.
Right.
It's going to respond to however you send it out, however you like to do it. So, it's something I'm working with, and it's been really interesting. It just came up recently. You know, it's something I worked with, but interesting to talk about it because I can be vulnerable on here and speak about it because I'm just it's just my human nature. I think right now, all this we're just exposed by so much distraction and social media and all this stuff, but what's emerging is human experience. That's we're all thirsty for human experience because we're teaching each other how to walk through this life, and through raw emotion, through raw truth. That is how we're supposed to evolve together past all this stuff that's going on. But what we're watching is just an unraveling and the crumbling of systems in order for this to be reborn, of what we're remembering what we are. And, I think even same with it too, like the patterns that I did ask those questions for was like arrogance. Like, I feel a sense of arrogance and like a badge of honor to feel hate. And which I found to be pretty interesting. Like, why? That's such a weird way to go about it, because I wore even like my pain and suffering as a badge of honor. Oh, I've gone through so much. Look at me. But in the end, like, that's not really like who I am. That's a false version of me, wanting to ignite a different path. That's not in like what my true self wants me to walk through. Which has been like just brutal honesty, you know. But I always tell people, ask the right questions, you get the right answers. But when you said like that hook, like that really got me. Like, it just, like it feels like that, you know.
Totally. We all have that hook. And I like to call it the sweet fix. You know, it's like we're all addicts in some way if we can kind of look at it, honestly enough, because every single one of us at one point in our life has had something that hooked us so deep that we couldn't kick it for a while. Maybe we kicked it, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be something else that hooks us in. It's karma. That's what it is. We just have karma with the world around us. It's an invitation to actually transcend that karma. And again, through oftentimes suffering is a mechanism to start to clear that karma. But I look at it like I'm parenting my child, right? You want your child to experience a little bit of struggle Struggle is important. Struggle builds resilience. Struggle builds self-trust. Struggle gives us, the little beings, space to find their own way. But the moment you see them suffering, right, moving from struggle to suffer, it's time to pick up that little being and say, I've got you. I'm here. And that's how I parent my daughter. It's like I allow just enough struggle for her to find her way in out of a difficult situation, or she's trying to just sit down from when she stood up to hold on to something. And yet if I see that there's suffering that comes in, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to be here. I'm going to help co-regulate the nervous system. We could do that to ourselves, for ourselves also. And we can retrain ourselves from needing to suffer for years and years and years to clear this hook of karma that we are dealing with. And I don't remember why I started saying this, but that hook is like, it's the thing that we have to actually start to clear in our lives. That is the addictive pattern that runs our entire storyline. We create entire lives and shapes around this one particular hook, potentially.
Totally. Thank you for that. Made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
To me, at least.
Yeah. I mean, I think everybody's felt it at some point.
Yeah. I mean, and the hook is, it's got like that barb at the end, you know, so it's not easy to pull out. It takes a little bit of finesse and some technique to it.
Completely. And just when you think you've gotten through it, there's something else to test you and say, are you sure?
Yeah, right.
Are you going to feel it again? Do you want to suffer some more? Or are you really ready? Because like this could be painless or, you know, this could be painful.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I mean, when I think about like, you know, I feel like the more you move forward in your life and the more you start to elevate yourself, I feel like that's when things are actually coming to the surface, because you have to clear them as you go up to the different levels within the elevator shaft.
Right.
You know, and so like the higher you go, I feel like the more you go up, the things just fall off.
Right.
Through truth and love, you know, and like, and I'm only, let's say like the Buddha, for instance, like when he was working through his state, you know, to go to reach enlightenment, he came across those demons that he talks about, like fear and doubt and like, that come to him, and he had to face those things before he went into enlightenment,
Right.
which you can come back down and teach everyone what he had experienced. And I think we have to face our demons. You know, they're going to come around the corner anyways. So why not just face them now? And demons are just the manifestation of our own mind, you know, the things we've created within ourselves and fed them. And I think we take ownership for that. It gives us the greater capacity to really like transform it, like you had mentioned. And I do remember hearing like an indigenous group talking about a curse. Like a curse is never something you can ever like uncurse it, but you can transform it. And through transformation, it gives you the true part of yourself that's been like waiting, like dormant, to just unleash this curse.
Interesting. Yeah. I want to understand that more. That particular one.
About transforming?
That you can never undo a curse, but it gives you the part of yourself that is here to transform.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like we can never receive anything that we weren't fully open to. Right? So somewhere in our consciousness, we wanted to receive this thing to teach us something. So I believe that that's kind of maybe what it is they're saying.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, what you're saying too. Because we play a part.
We welcome it all.
We make a decision.
Yes.
Technically. And so like when we put all the blame and anger outside of ourselves. We're not
Yeah.
taking that ownership. We're putting like our own sovereignty. We're outsourcing our sovereignty essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. Goes right back to relationship.
Yeah.
I think I was driving in the car the other day. I don't remember why I was thinking of this, but everybody wants to talk about the things that we do, right? Oh, you do combo and you do this and you do that. And I was driving and I was like, yeah, but I might have a shovel, but if I don't know how to build the right hole to put whatever it is I want to put in the hole, then that shovel is a completely worthless tool. Right. So we have to know how to work with all of these things that are in our tool belt. And we have to know how to do all of this with great precision, with great responsibility comes all of these gifts to work with these particular tools, because we're the thing that brings it to life. Like we bring everything to life. And it's through our relationship with all of these things that people actually get the transmission of being able to transform. It's not even so much about the tool itself. It's through our ability to use it that we then transmit to another person. So that's what I always like to talk about with people, because this comes back to frequency is medicine. It's the future of all medicine.
Yeah, I love how you brought that up because, I say the same thing. Like the Kambo is just a tool.
Yeah.
And our consciousness is the master.
Yeah.
Any other thing, like if you're going to go do, let's say EMDR, and you don't integrate your experience, that was just the mechanism to show you the roadmap of what was laying in the subconscious mind. But if you're going to go into these old behaviors and these old addictions, and you're not going to apply that memory and use it, then what purpose was it for? Right. So you have to use these things and take ownership, and an application is so important. Application, if you don't have application, then what's the whole point? Right. I always tell people too, Kambo it's a great tool, without a doubt. And I also don't think just doing one session is going to do it for you. You got to do multiple sessions of Kambo. I always tell people when they come see me now, you have to do minimum of 3. Absolute must. Because if you just do one, that's a rattling experience. You have no idea what the hell just happened to you.
Sure.
The second one, you're kind of understanding what's happening. There's still some resistance. In that third session, you're kind of oh, okay, I understand what's going on here. Now's the time to let go. And that's just a pattern I've seen. But it's just super hard. And over a period of time, I had to do just 3 sessions because that's the benefit. That's the benefit I was seeing is after 3, at least. Even 3 to 6. I mean, 6 is where you start really seeing big change.
True.
In someone. And I think, but it's deep work, man. You got to come in and show up for yourself. And I always tell people too, I was like, hey, just see me as a guide and a roadmap for yourself. Basically, you come in here and it's you versus you. And that's it.
Right.
You're the one here to do this deep work, and I honor you for that. So just stick to that and use that as your medicine. You are the medicine, and don't let anyone tell you anything different. And as soon as we start to see what the medicines are, family is medicine,
right?
And you yourself is medicine. And if you don't use those two things together, you may never heal.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Totally. You can do all the medicine in the world.
Yeah.
And if you don't relate to your life differently, forget about it.
Yeah, I mean, we've had people talk about plant medicine on here because I do feel like that those things are coming out of the jungles to help humanity.
Yes.
But I've heard just stories about these people doing these ayahuasca experiences and they can't even find their car keys. You know what I mean? It's what are you doing? You're just, elevated so much you can't even come down and talk to us on this planetary plane.
Right. Yeah, I always am curious. What for?
Right.
What for? What do you keep showing up to that for? And some people have answers, some people don't.
I do think they're helpful. I mean, there's an agency I'm working with now, and she's going to be the next guest in our podcast. It's the 343 Fund, and they send veterans to go do, and first responders, to go do ibogaine.
Great.
So like they're just funding these people to go do that. And I think ibogaine's one of those that has much more benefit because you don't see a lot of communities wrapped around iboga and ibogaine.
Totally.
Because I think that medicine does something different for someone where it kind of slaps you around a little bit, shows you your fear, and shows you the truth. And it's not like this like lovey-dovey experience. It's more like depressing. You have to face yourself in a way.
It depends on the person. Yeah, certainly depends on the person. Depends on what you're working with. It's just not as many smoke and mirrors. Yeah.
Like that. Well, I think we've had Corey come on here and talk about, he serves iboga and he's a Navy SEAL.
Oh, right.
And he was saying like, it's the truth, the root of all healing. So you go into the root of yourself and you get to find out what that is.
Right.
And a lot of time that's why you don't see these communities wrapped around it, because it's just, you get your healing and you leave and you just go out in the world and just be yourself.
Right. People don't want the truth sometimes.
Totally. But the truth sets you free, right? That's like famous expression.
Right.
All right. Well, thank you, Taylor.
Thank you.
You're a very kind spirit.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you and your time. If anyone needs to contact you, I'm going to put all your stuff in the comments in the description. Sorry. But if people want to work with you, what advice would you give them?
What advice? If people want to work with me, they can contact me. My schedule is limited these days, but yeah, if we are a good fit for one another, I'm totally open to making the space for people right now.
Cool.
Yeah, so just contact me. We'll talk.
Sounds good. Well, everyone, thank you for listening. Please like, subscribe, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. And I love you guys. Take care.
It's time for Crab Lives.